Okay, good afternoon, evening, everyone. My name is Ron Paull, Mayor. Welcome to Council Meeting number 17 for Tuesday, July 30th, 2024. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We have regrets sent in by Councillor Runge, and Councillor Elliott is joining us virtually by Zoom. We'd like to recognize that we meet on the traditional territory of the LHTAKO DENE Nation. I will now look for a motion to approve the agenda, but the agenda is amended or will be amended by your motion, Council. And we have a late agenda item from the North Cariboo Métis Association. We also have a late agenda attachments under F2 delegations. There is a PowerPoint presentation accompanying that presentation, and there is also a staff report number 93/24, Decrim Coordinator and Clean Team Director, and so there's some addendas there. Northern Health on F2, Northern Health will be joining us by Zoom, and that they will be there just for information. Item G, under items arising from previous council minutes, we do have two resolutions that the Deputy Clerk will read into the record, and I think that is it. So with that, could I have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended? Councillor Vic, Councillor Rudenberg, any discussion? All in favor, opposed, carried. So and then we need a motion now to adopt the regular minutes of the last meeting held June 25. Moved Councillor Goulet, seconded Councillor McKelvey. Any discussion? All in favor, opposed, carried. Now we go to presentations. And I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome our Quesnel Ambassador Leadership Program outgoing presentation, as well as welcoming the new 2024 ambassadors. It's my pleasure to welcome the program coordinator, Rose Scott, the 2023 outgoing royalty, and the new 2024 royalty to tonight's City Council meeting. After I introduce each outgoing ambassador, please come up to the front to receive your rose. Please remain up front until all presentations have been made so we can take a group photo. I'm just going to take a moment here and readjust the microphone because we're going to come around to the front and do the presentation. So please bear with me. Okay, is the microphone working okay from here? Perfect. I love it when a plan comes together. So at this point, I'd like to call on outgoing royalty, Jamie-Lynn Fedoruk and Avery Cassidy to come forward to receive your rose. This is our outgoing royalty.
No way.
Nothing to be nervous about. It's all.
It's been a year, you know.
Yeah, it's been a year.
It's been a little bit.
I think you better turn around. There's a photographer right there. Perfect. So stick around, and we're going to have a group photograph in a moment. So I would now like to introduce the 2024 Quesnel ambassadors. After I introduce each ambassador, please come forward to the front to receive your rose. Please remain up front until all presentations have been made so that we can take a group photograph as well. So I'd like now to call on the 2024 incoming royalty Ambassador Lacey Anderson and Ambassador Jayla Wheeler. Come on up. There you go. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And welcome. And finally, this isn't in my program, but we have an extra Rose here. And guess who that is for? That is for Rose. Come on up. Rose is our long-time and diligent coordinator. So, Rose Scott, thank you, thank you. Now it's picture time. Squeeze in here. Yeah.
Scoop. Oh, yeah, that was not so much. Do it sideways towards me, Lacey.
Turn your flower around.
There we go.
Do we do?
Oh, okay.
I don't know where to look. I forgot how to do this.
Just keep smiling.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, everyone. Did anyone want to make? Okay. All right. Well, then you take. You're going to make a little speech. There's your microphone.
I am. Oh, that's okay. Go right now. That's
You
wonderful.
don't have to face the microphone. Just there you go.
Can I face it though? Is that okay?
Yeah.
You want to see me? Okay. You want to start?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Avery Cassidy, 2023 Quesnel Ambassador.
And I'm Jamie-Lynn Fedoruk, 2023 Quesnel Ambassador.
Tonight, we would first like to say something that we learned from the program. This year, I had the opportunity to speak in front of the biggest medal ceremony at the BC Winter Games, and I would have never been able to do it without this program. So I recommend anyone to take the 6-month program.
I think one of the most important things I've learned this year, and I think it was Rose who said it, was fake it till you make it. It's honestly, it sounds so weird to say, but confidence is something that you learn, and once you've learned it, you can go anywhere with it.
You're faking it right now.
Yep, I am totally faking it right now. But yeah, I just want to say that we're so incredibly proud of all of our candidates, the 7 of the girls we are so proud of. It was amazing to see them all grow and develop. And Jayla and Lacey, you're gonna make us proud. We know it.
And we're also going to make you proud.
Yeah, we're gonna get to do through this without crying. Don't worry.
I am.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah. You guys want to say something?
I'll get it over.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. I am Lacey Anderson, one of the 2024 Quesnel Ambassadors. I'm really excited to begin my journey as a Quesnel Ambassador, and I'm really looking forward to everything that we'll get to do this year. Particularly, I'm looking forward to traveling to new communities, meeting new people, and representing Quesnel in a positive way, and hopefully make some unforgettable memories. Thank you.
Thank you, Lacey.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jayla Wheeler, and I am one of the 2024 Quesnel Ambassadors. When I think of ambassador, I think of grace, kindness, dedication, and pride in one's community. And Jamie, Lynn, and Avery have taught me that, so I'm so grateful. No, stop it, you're gonna make me cry. I'm so grateful to have had them and to learn from their knowledge. Hopefully we make you proud. And Lacey, and Lacey, I'm beyond excited to get to know you as a person and as a fellow ambassador. Thank you all, and have a great evening.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Now, a necessity of being a past ambassador and a present ambassador is that you have to stay for the whole meeting. No, so thank you so much. And thank you. Where did Rose go? Oh, thank you, Rose. Well done. Okay, we're done.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, now we are going to move to delegations, and we have our first delegation on district heating, TorchLight Bioresources, Jamie Stephen, Managing Director, and Jean Blair, Director of Planning via Zoom. So Jamie and Jean, you're on the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Paull, and thank you, Council, and the opportunity to speak with you again. As you know, we've been working with the City of Quesnel, with your staff, for about a year and a half, actually almost coming on 2 years, completing a feasibility study on whether or not district heating can be a viable energy option in Quesnel. I've got a slide deck, so I'll just pull that up here. There we go. And so thought we would just give you a very quick refresher, because it's been quite a while since we've been to council. So I'll just share this. So basically what we've done is have a look at, there's two components to district heating. One is essentially a centralized energy center. This is where the energy is created, generated, and then it's distributed to all the buildings connected to that network via an underground network of hot water pipes. This is a very common form of heating. In other northern countries, 55 to 95% of the population gets their heat in this manner. So very proven. We're not talking about new technology or anything along those lines. And just a brief, a couple pictures here. We talk about it's essentially a network, as I say, a network of underwater pipes. Is actually very easy to operate, and because it is a closed system. Instead of everybody having their own furnace or boiler, there's that centralized energy plant, and essentially just a heat exchanger in each building. These are pre-insulated pipes, very quite easy to install. Larger transmission pipes, and then as you saw earlier, the connecting single-family detached homes. This is kind of an example of what is required for actual installation of those district heating systems. So obviously the subsurface infrastructure. And so what we were doing with the study is really to look at whether or not specifically bioenergy and some of the energy from Quesnel's strength as a center for the forest products industry could be a possibility. As I'm sure you're well aware, it's basically been a partnership or a collaboration between the City of Quesnel and West Fraser, and then TorchLight, previously with Kerr-Liddell, have been service providers to the city and to West Fraser. So there's three parts to what we've done. The stage, and so this is the last kind of wrap up of that feasibility study. In stage one, where we came and spoke to you, we looked at whether a community-wide district heating system can be economical. And what we found that yes, it is possible to have a community-wide system, but only if you have a very low-cost source of heat. Right, so lower than natural gas, quite frankly. So the pipe network can be economical, but only with a very low-cost source of heat. Stage two, which was completed by Kerr-Liddell, was to look at heat recovery from Cariboo pulp and paper's heat recovery from the effluent from Cariboo pulp and paper, using large heat pumps. So this is where you're drawing the heat out of the effluent that's currently discharged into the river. So, but what was found is that is not a low-cost source of heat. Even though you've got some decent efficiencies when you're using heat pumps, there's still a fair amount of electricity consumption. And it's not a very low, and you also have the energy center is quite high capital cost. So it's not a very low cost source of heat. So then what we've done, and as it said, we looked at all the different, ways, we looked at every single building in terms of high level estimate of what that heat load is, but really focusing on that, obviously that, North Quesnel downtown area where you've got the highest density. In the master planning, we broke it into zones. And so for this stage three, we really wanted to find out, is it possible in that most centralized, in the highest density area, in that zone one or North Quesnel, is it possible to find another source of energy that could potentially heat that network? So our goal for stage three, this last stage of the project, was to identify a low carbon, very low cost source of heat of sufficient capacity, so enough total heat to heat downtown Quesnel, ideally all of North Quesnel, to justify any continued development efforts. So we looked at 4 energy supply options. One was new biomass heat boilers, so essentially wood chip boilers. The second was to use existing heat-only boilers at the industrial facilities, namely QSAW and the MDF plant. The third was to look at, is there something that we can do with the existing boilers and turbines at Cariboo Pulp and Paper? Can they be modified in some way, or is there capacity to be able to get more heat out of them for district heating? And then the fourth option was to look at a new biomass combined heat and power plant with fuel potentially redirected from QSAW and the MDF boilers to provide heat to those industrial heat loads, but also the district heating system. So this is really what we looked at, focusing down into that North Quesnel downtown area, and obviously, looking at the industrial facilities and how this could potentially, you can create that linkage. Obviously, we're well aware of some of the wood fiber supply challenges in the region, so that was certainly taken into consideration. Jean Blair, who is also is our Director of Planning and also on the call today, so she took another look at all the energy loads that were required and came up with some different scenarios as to what this would look like and what this would cost for the downtown. And what we found was that, similar finding to the total community-wide network, what this shows is the capital cost of the pipes for North Quesnel or downtown, that's in the blue, versus natural gas at the price of gas of $65 a ton CO2, and the price of gas with a carbon value of $170 a ton CO2, and then an air source heat pump. So it's really important to understand the options for the heat consumers. This is, for what a heat consumer would face, and how these different options level up. So I can see on the capital cost side, if we're competing with gas without a relatively high carbon value, it's very difficult. But when gas with a high carbon value or air source heat pump is considered, then there is an option to be quite competitive without any grants. I wanted to emphasize that there's no grants. So what did we find? So what we found is that the number one option, new biomass heat boilers, is not competitive with gas. There's simply all the costs of the new boiler, the fuel, et cetera, have to be borne by the heat customer. That is also true to a certain extent when we're utilizing the existing heat-only boilers at the industrial sites. There is some capacity, particularly at QSAW, but these are kind of older boilers, and the fuel cost still has to be borne by the heat consumer. So that's an important consideration. And really, those two options are not going to be viable compared to the baseline, which is obviously natural gas. What we did find, then we looked at Cariboo Pulp and Paper. In general, there's a little bit of heat available at Cariboo Pulp and Paper. There's a little bit available in the boiler that could be extended, but in general, there's not really enough heat to be able, it's an efficient operation. There's not enough heat to be able to meet the demands of the downtown. However, what we did find was that one of the ways is that that we could get a lot more heat is to use a different design of a new steam turbine. So keeping the existing boiler, which generates steam, but install a new steam turbine, which extracts a portion of the heat instead of going to full electricity, extracts a portion of that heat for the district heating system. And oftentimes with heat pumps, people use what's called the coefficient of performance. An air source heat pump has a seasonal coefficient of performance in Quesnel and between 2.5 and 3 or so. But what we found was with this approach, we'd actually get a coefficient of performance of 8/18. So very, very efficient way. And you don't have to replace the entire boiler. You don't have to replace a whole bunch of other things, but with a new steam turbine, which would be valued about $13 million. and that would actually lead to very, very low cost heat. This is also the type of thing, in my experience, that is highly eligible for capital grants, etc. We also found that a new biomass combined heat and power plant would provide that very low cost heat as well when you have two products, electricity and heat, and you're able to sell the electricity to the grid at a relatively high value. That means that the cost of heat is essentially close to zero. And so that is an economic possibility. Obviously, though, in the region we have fuel supply challenges, and I think that's why with our recommendations, and the conclusion is that there are two ways where you can have economically viable district heating in Quesnel, high capital cost pipes, but very, very low cost heat product. But of the two options, we would recommend having another look at that new steam turbine, because it's significantly lower cost relative to a new combined heat and power plant, and it also doesn't require any additional biomass fuel. So that's our director of engineering, Tom Ansell, who actually used to work at QRP. He went through and analyzed all the West Fraser data, and this is where our recommendation would be, and it essentially provides a path forward to justify continued efforts on the district heating network. So this is just a diagram of steam comes into a turbine where
Stephen, something happened to your something happened to your sound briefly.
Oh,
we can hear you.
Sorry about that. Okay. So that's what I've got today. Appreciate, happy to answer any questions you have about this part of the study, or the broader study and where the city might want to go from here.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. I'll open up the floor to questions. Go ahead, Councillor Vic.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. I guess the first question I have is, Cariboo Pulp and Paper is already producing power of their own. I believe I'm correct in saying that. Would their power production go down as a result of producing power to facilitate this new steam boiler?
So the existing boiler stays the same, right? So the thing where you're actually burning the biomass, the hog fuel, there's no change in that regard. What is different would be a new turbine where the steam goes to generate electricity. And yes, when you're extracting some of the steam for heating, there is a slight decrease in the electricity generation. But what we're doing is we're getting 18 units of heat for every 1 unit of lost electricity, which is extremely efficient, right? So because we're extracting that heat at about 75, 80 degrees, because we don't need to heat our homes with 300 degrees. And so there is a slight decrease, but essentially what we can do is heat all of Quesnel with about 3 megawatts of lost electricity, which is pretty incredible, right? Because you've got that 18-to-1 ratio. So there isn't really anything more efficient than that, and it's simply having a turbine where you're extracting a small portion of that energy for the district heating. During the summer, one of the benefits of this type of turbine is that in the summer, when you don't have a lot of heat load, you can just maximize the amount of electricity generation. Right? It's very flexible in how much steam is actually extracted for that district heating product. So obviously this requires a very in-depth conversation and lots of a willingness on the part of West Fraser to continue looking at this option. But of the options that we analyzed, this was by far the most efficient, doesn't require any more biomass, and results in a significant greenhouse gas reduction.
So just as a follow-up, so that would be a way to incentivize West Fraser to consider such an improvement to their technology, would be during warmer months they could perhaps recoup more electrical production than in the winter months to offset the slight decrease in electricity production?
They wouldn't necessarily be generating more electricity. Perry, you're magically upside down. You wouldn't necessarily be generating more electricity. West Fraser would have to be compensated for obviously the lost electricity, but there's nothing else out there where you can get 18 units of heat for 1 unit of electricity, right? So that's why, if you take the value that they're getting for the electricity sold to the grid and divide it by 18, that's not a very high number, right?
Okay, anyone else? I've got a question. Go
I think
ahead.
Perry might have something to. Can't hear you, Perry, unfortunately.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that. I've got a question, if no one else is ready with another question. You've outlined, Jamie, 4 options, sort of, it's all rendered down to 4 options. Are all of those options reliant on organic wood-based fiber, or is there a natural gas option in that mix of 4?
So we didn't look at a natural gas option because in general it doesn't make a lot of sense to replace direct natural gas, boilers, furnaces with the district heating system with natural gas. You're putting a lot of capital, you've got a very high capital expenditure for the pipe network without a significant reduction in gas and certainly, very limited greenhouse gas reduction. So natural gas could certainly be a backup, any type of district heating system, because the heat carrier is hot water, which means that anything that makes heat can essentially heat that network. So certainly we would, you have to have a backup. So natural gas could be a backup, electricity could be a backup, but natural gas tends to be that backup. They are dependent upon wood fiber, certainly, because it's tied into the existing West Fraser facilities. However, that new turbine option doesn't result in any additional demand on Cariboo pulp and paper or the fiber basket.
Okay, thank you for that. And yeah, your answer, I basically had the question here that isn't natural gas rather self-defeating, in this kind of a scenario. So thank you for that. Anyone else? Oh, Councillor Elliott, go ahead.
My audio coming through? Okay.
Yep, we can hear you. And thanks for being right way up. That was interesting. Hey, thanks very much for the presentation. This is, 18-to-1. It sounds great. There's a lot of wood fiber out there, fire mitigation, all these kind of things. Hopefully that can come into play for sure. But you did mention, Jamie, about the potential for grant funding, things like that. I know that the capital cost right off the top is going to be extensive. But do you have any kind of, is it a 30-70 split potentially, or a 50-50 or a 90-10? What are we looking at maybe?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of different ways to look at funding. One is grants, right? I mean, just like straight up, here's some cash. There's preferred financing, whereby the Canada Infrastructure Bank lends at rates less than the government of Canada can borrow for, so that what those costs worked into those numbers that were presented were, the types of returns that a pension fund would require, right? So the actual cost to the consumer would come down if you have a lower cost of capital, if you're able to borrow for much lower than that. Canada Infrastructure Bank, for example, they have an agreement with the City of Richmond and Corrix, which is owned by the BC Investment Management Corporation, BCI, so this is the BC pension plans, they basically deployed, I think it's $150 million, and there's plenty more available from the Canada Infrastructure Bank. I think in the past couple of years, they've deployed over $1 billion for district heating pipes. It's a good fit for Canada Infrastructure Bank. So there are grants available. certainly some of it depends upon the political climate, what things are happening. I think one of the key things to recognize is that nothing can really compete with gas on a pure cost basis, the current gas prices, right? If there's no valuation of carbon, it's very hard to put those pipes in the ground, right? It's very hard to put a new infrastructure in place. However, if you said, we're not going to use gas, we're going to decarbonize, we're going to meet climate goals, I can't see a other option being lower cost than this, right? So that's the key thing is like, has the province or has the country decided we're going to stop using natural gas for heating? If so, what is the lowest cost option, right? So that's really where there is lots of capital out there. It's all about what is the required return, and then when the proportion of grant, FCM tends to do about 15% or so, but you could go, there's provincial options, federal options. It tends to be on a case-by-case basis, right?
Follow up, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, please go ahead.
So I know it's early days, but any idea of the original capital cost for, I guess it would depend on which projects that you're starting in the city and things like that.
Yeah, so it depends on which buildings you're gonna connect. Certainly, the energy supply is going to be the low cost part, right? That $13 million for a turbine. That's also why it doesn't make sense to go with the boiler that's from 1985 as your source of heat, because you're gonna realistically, you're gonna have to have a transmission pipe from Cariboo to the downtown, and realistically, you're looking at it as a minimum $100 million, right? So that's that's really the type of scale that you're talking about. But it's important to put it into perspective of what is the longevity of this infrastructure. We're talking 60, 70 years. It's the sort of thing as like water sewer. If you're building a new water sewer system today, what would that be, right? So that's the type of scale of what you're talking about here. And then so there's a very high upfront capex. And most of the costs are all about repaying that capex. The primary driver for a lot of district heating, particularly in smaller communities, is about economic development. It's about energy security. Everybody wants to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but those are the primary drivers. Is ensuring that energy expenditures stay within the community, and then obviously there's the whole you don't want to just build stuff for the sake of building stuff, but if it actually makes sense for the heat consumer, the capital and infrastructure development economic benefits are quite substantial.
I guess it's just to figure out how to get that initial cost and how you're getting those loans and how they're going to be paid off over the decades. But so there are a variety of models. So in BC, it's quite common for municipalities to own the infrastructure assets. But for instance, the agreement that Corrix has with the city of Richmond is that Corrix deploys all the capital. So BC is pension fund capital, and Corrix does a lot of the development. Obviously, has to be approved by the city of Richmond, but ultimately that infrastructure is owned by the city with Lulu. They set up a district energy corporation, Lulu Island Energy Corporation. So there's in Europe they have a lot of cooperatives whereby everybody connected to the network owns the network. Not necessarily a North American type of approach, but obviously by definition not for profit. So the most common models we do see are municipality owned and not-for-profit type of entities. There are obviously privately owned systems in Canada. Most of those are essentially owned by pension funds.
Okay, I've got Councillor Rudenberg next.
Thank you, and thank you for your update here. So these sorts of systems, given that we have extreme weather events, whether they're heat domes or extended minus 30 and 40 degree weather, do these types of systems, is there enough to deal with an entire downtown core that's going through one of those extreme weather events?
Absolutely, absolutely. So just to give you an idea of how extreme district heating can get. So Iceland's, 95% of the population of Iceland has district heating. There's 10 district heating systems in Greenland. Svalbard, which is in like the Arctic Circle, has a district heating system. It's above ground because it's all frozen all the time. So, absolutely, I grew up in Saskatchewan, so, bring on the minus 50. This type of infrastructure, you just have to scale the pipes for that type of temperature. Generally, the colder it gets, the more competitive district heating is. It's kind of funny that like Vancouver is the hub of district energy development in Canada. Kind of strange, quite frankly. You'd think it would be like Edmonton. So that's really like, if you look at Sweden, Finland, other colder countries, those other guys that are big country, Russians, 70% of Russians get district heating. They kind of got old, crappy systems. But needless to say, for cold countries, this is the default. Canada is just a bit of an exception because of our historically low natural gas prices.
Okay, and I knew you were going to go to those examples, but I guess I was more thinking about specifically with our smaller system that we're looking at. The other piece is a more forward-thinking question or comment is, if this moves forward and we start developing this program, opportunities to work with the province and with the feds around heat pump programs, which is another layer of how to make more efficient use of what we're getting. So I guess, like I said, I know it's more of a forward question, but I think it's something that we need to keep in the back of our minds if we do move forward with this program. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and I think one of, as we know, BC is importing huge amounts of electricity now. I think it's about 40% year to date, which is pretty crazy. And so anything where we can have very, very high efficiency, like an air source heat pump is going to have much lower efficiency than what we're talking about here for the amount of electricity consumed, or realistically, the way that it kind of plays out is the reduction in electricity supplied. That is, an 18-to-1 ratio is really, if we could get that everywhere, we could definitely significantly reduce natural gas consumption in the province without a massive new electrical supply.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from council or staff, or anyone else that's coming in on Zoom that wants to offer a comment or a question before we move on to our next item of business?
Maybe, Mr. Mayor, just timeline of next steps.
Well, that's, we're going to be sitting down and doing some strat planning, and I see that that's really what the next steps will be. There's a lot to learn here and a lot to digest. This is a huge project, and we have to really do our due diligence as we move forward. And that there are some positives, and there are also some negatives, and those need to be weighed with each other. So, did you have anything?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, the next step for staff will be connecting with Perry Gooman, who came online. Perry's the section lead from West Fraser for energy and carbon. And so we need to sit down and have a frank discussion with West Fraser. And then, like you said, have a council and staff meeting as well for next steps. But it was really important to see there is a path forward for this project.
Yeah, I think that it's certainly, worth exploring. And yes, we are in challenging times with climate change and fiber supply and all the rest of it, but that shouldn't stop us from exploring this opportunity. So thank you, everyone, for being on the call, and we'll now move to our next
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Bye-bye.
We'll now move to our next delegation, and that is Decriminalization Community Coordinator. Boy, that's a long title. Update from Kelsi Andreychuk on the, well, I guess on the decriminalization and the clean team and the whole 9 yards. So I'll let you get set up there, and once you're set up, the floor is yours, Kelsi.
Mayor, while we're waiting, maybe we should just introduce Daryl Petzel. Mayor, excuse me, it's Tanya.
Sure, go ahead.
Daryl, I just want to make sure that we introduce Daryl Petzel, who's on the line with Northern Health with us.
I saw him here somewhere, but now I don't see him online. But I guess he's still, are you still there, Daryl?
I'm still here.
Oh, there you are. I got it. Thank you.
Good.
Just want to make sure I'm heard. Is it on?
Might be a little closer.
Is that better? Okay. Just a test. Good. Good evening, everyone. My name's Kelsi Andreychuk, and I'm the Decriminalization Engagement Coordinator for the City of Quesnel in collaboration with Northern Health. I'm just going to begin with a funding update. So Northern Health has identified funding to expand proactive outreach roles to support the province with decriminalization policy. Northern Health has confirmed funding this position until December 31st, 2026. Council supported funding the city's clean team, which has provided dollars for peer stipends and clean team supplies. Closer. Okay. Tasks and deliverables. Attend provincial and regional team meetings. These are with our team lead positions as well as our proactive outreach positions. Submit bi-weekly reporting to the ministry. This is just to present our statistics and also monitor the effects of decriminalization policy. Build and sustain relationships with local law enforcement and relative service providers, and assist people who use drugs with effectively navigating the care system. Just tasks and deliverables continued. Providing outreach services. Sorry. This is through the CAT van by providing on-the-ground supports, collaborating with other service providers, and working one-on-one with clients, coordinating the Clean Team program, community action team involvement. I currently work in the CAT van on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and participating in various committees, providing updates to relevant agencies. I also sit on multiple other committees, such as Good Neighbor meetings, the Situation Table, as well as maintain relationships with many other local organizations. Decriminalization program objectives. Work with local law enforcement to minimize interactions with people who use drugs. work within a decriminalization framework, and implement decriminalization policy. As some of you may be aware, there have been some changes to decrim policy, which we're going to review shortly. Providing on-the-ground supports for people who use drugs, and support referrals and connect people to care. So here I've just attached a copy of my proactive outreach reporting data. This is what I submit to the ministry every month. So the number of clients served, sorry, I'm just going to make sure I'm with it.
Kelsi, I'm sorry to interrupt. Is there a PowerPoint presentation that everybody can see? Because I'm not getting it here.
Yeah, we've got it in front of us. I don't know why you're not seeing it.
Okay, no problem. No problem. I can hear fine, so I'm getting it. Thank you.
Sorry about that. So the number of clients served, this represents the total number of clients I've connected with each month. And the number of unique clients served, this is the total number of clients that I've individually connected to care. As you'll see here, for the winter months, December and January specifically, you'll notice some higher numbers in the amount of people I've connected with. I think this is just likely because we often see more people in the colder weather months, likely just because they're more confined and restricted to where they can spread out and go. Also, potentially not so many people tenting, sleeping outside, couch surfing, those kinds of things. Treatment and detox. This role has been a key support in connecting 10 community members to treatment facilities and 15 community members to detox. Just a note, these connections generally require multiple attempts and can experience many different barriers. Decriminalization policy review. Decriminalization policy aims to view substance use as a health care matter, not a criminal justice one. We integrate addiction services with healthcare, housing, and other related services. The province is working with police to provide guidance on illegal drug possession. People who merely possess drugs but are not threatening public safety will not be subject to an arrest or charge. Decriminalization of illicit drugs applies to people over the age of 18. This exemption applies to the following spaces: private residents, healthcare clinics that provide outpatient services, such as overdose prevention sites and drug checking facilities. Next, this information is provided by our decrim policy team, our team lead through Northern Health, who's keeping us updated on any changes. So these are just kind of some of the main changes. The BC government has modified decrim policy, making it illegal to use in public spaces, including hospitals. The province will provide police with more tools to address public safety while offering access to treatment for substance users. The focus will be to support patients with addictions and support them toward treatment and recovery. This change will not recriminalize drug possession in a private residence. The province will provide police guidance to only arrest for simple possession of illicit drugs in exceptional circumstances. And hospitals will be modifying care for substance users. Patients will receive active support and addiction care to treatment. A clean team update. Our clean team currently consists of 3 full-time peers, 3 part-time peers, and 4 casual peers. We provide daily cleanups in the city's high-traffic areas, schools, parks, commercial areas, such as downtown and West Quesnel. Peers report friendly and positive interactions with business owners and community members on a daily basis. And we've seen an increase in calls for cleanups, sometimes up to 1 or 2 requests a day. This is in addition to the cleanups we're already providing. Here I've just outlined a copy of our call log for the clean team. You'll notice from January until June, our calls have just been increasing. This is our garbage and needles tracking. So our program for Clean Team started November 16th, 2021. Until now, we've collected 1,762 big bags of garbage, 7,510 small bags of garbage, and 5,692 needles. Our clean team update on our budget. So the city has committed $75,880 for a contract, September 2023 to September 2024. So far, we've utilized a total of $53,518.66. This includes $878.66 for supplies. We have $22,316.34 remaining, which will fund us through to November. Additional dollars required to fund the clean team for the full 2024-2025 contract is $58,000. So since my position was extended till December 31st, 2026, this is just revised for the full contract. So again, $75,880 was committed for September 2023 to September 2024. This funds 68 hours per week of cleanup, which equates to $1,440 a week for peer wages. We've utilized $53,518.66 as of July 22nd, 2024. Again, we have $22,316.34 remaining. Dollars required to support Clean Team until January 31st, 2026 is $87,600. $76,080 required for our 2025 budget. And that's all from me. Is there any questions or comments?
Thank you, Kelsi. I'll open up the floor here to, is that you, Councillor McKelvey? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kelsi, thank you for the presentation. I'm just curious, and also for the public's information, what do the Clean Team individuals get paid per hour? And what would a typical full-time day look like for the Clean Team?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, good question. So our peers are paid in stipends, so cash only. It's $20 an hour, and we do 4-hour shifts, so it's $80 for a full shift.
Okay, anyone else? Councillor Rudenberg.
Thank you for the update, Kelsi. I always appreciate that. So one of the numbers that stood out for me was the 25 people who perhaps wouldn't have gotten to where they needed to be without the program. So that has to be a win. We always ask about whether or not these programs work. And, you know, people may say, oh, well, how come there isn't 100 people going or whatever? But if you can find facilities for 25 people, because that's my next question. You know, we talk about the decrim policies that are happening, and, you know, the province is going to provide police with more tools to address public safety while offering access to treatment for substance users. That's the problem, right? There are not those facilities. So they can say they're going to provide it, and you can get people ready to go, but if those facilities aren't ready. So maybe this isn't a fair question, but just what kind of challenges do you have when you know you've got somebody ready to go? Is it challenging for you to find a facility?
Yeah, it is. It is challenging. I think the main challenge would be accessibility. Obviously, in Cornell, we don't have a detox or treatment services. So the 15 people that went to detox, that's generally Prince George. There's been a few that have gone even further to Kamloops, things like that. But again, most of the people going, you know, usually they are low income, potentially don't have vehicles. So it's also figuring out transportation, things like that, and then getting them on that transportation. We often use the e-bus, and again, it doesn't run every day. So we run into many barriers like that. For treatment, there's tons of different steps to going to treatment. And usually I rely on other supports like our clinician at Westside Mental Health, which is great for referrals to treatments all over BC. But again, usually it's a lengthy waiting process, and some of them even require people to be clean for, months at a time. So it's quite extensive. All the different options can be, we can run into multiple barriers, so.
Okay, thank you for that, Kelsi, and keep up the work.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Goulet.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Kelsi, for the fantastic report. And I think it goes to a point that maybe there's some advocacy work that needs to be done, maybe from municipalities, maybe at UBCM, to have some kind of treatment centers and better access to those treatment centers for all of this. I think it's huge, especially the mental health piece can play into this, right? So we need to really focus on that. I just had a question to recent changes. One of them was hospitals will be modifying care for substance users and patients will receive active support and addition care treatments. Does that mean that hospitals and that will have an area for these patients and almost like I don't know if you want to call it a treatment center, but sort of a triage where they can go there and then probably be able to access a detox or a different facility. So I don't know if that's really a question, but I think that's something that needs to be really looked at as well. So thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Yes, with the very recent ongoing decriminalization policy changes that are coming out of government, I mean, this is something that we have to watch all the time, and this is basically a huge work in progress. So any more? Councillor Vic, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that since this program evolved as a partnership between the city and Northern Health, I can tell you as someone on the ground making some of these phone calls for some support for cleaning needles and whatnot, that the responsiveness has been exceptional. And I know my colleagues in downtown businesses would agree that the overall cleanliness and safety issues regarding from the sharps being on the ground has been, in most cases, eliminated. And if it's not eliminated immediately, it's extremely quick response. So I wanted to convey my appreciation for your good work and your team's good work. I do have a question regarding, and my colleague here made a comment about province providing police with more tools. Notwithstanding the need for treatment, what other tools are coming down the pipeline that is alluded to in this bullet here?
That's a really good question, Mitch. I think because the changes were so recent with our team lead for our program through Northern Health, she's still notifying us of just those examples and the extra things that police are going to be trained on. So I can't fully answer your question right now, but I can definitely get back to you on what that looks like. I know to begin with, police, the training was quite minimal and not super extensive, so hopefully they'll be expanding on that more. But yeah, I'm not fully sure at this time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Elliott, did I see your hand up?
No, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I was just recognizing Councillor Vic's, saying that it's just such an important program. So thank you very much, Kelsi, for everything you do.
Thank you.
Okay, so seeing no more comments, questions, I guess we're ready to move on. So thank you for that, Kelsi. Well done. And you do have a tough job in front of you. So on behalf of council and the community, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is item G, items arising from previous special closed meetings. And I just want to say that this deals with me personally. But as long as there is no active discussion, or, well, not so much discussion, but if there's a motion coming out of this, I will find it necessary to hand the chair over to Councillor Vic, so we'll see how it goes. So Deputy Clerk Hartley will read into the record two resolutions coming out of the June 25 closed meeting.
Moved and seconded that council extend the 3-month progress review of Mayor Paull's censure and sanctions until after the court case of Ron Paull versus the City of Quesnel, and that following the conclusion of the above noted matter, council will provide Mayor Paull 14 days' notice to the censure sanction review, allowing him an opportunity to prepare comment on his progress and make representations to council.
So there's no motion required there. The motion's already been made, so thank you for that. Okay, now we will move to committee reports. And item I1, July 10, 2024, Financial Sustainability and Audit Committee Chair, Summary, Councillor Vic to report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I should preface my report by saying shortly, Director Norburn is going to be delivering an extensive staff report on the same topic, but I will touch on FSAC's hearing and in many cases seeing the issue at hand, which is our RCMP detachment building is not meeting, it's not able to meet the demands placed upon it. In short, policing needs have changed extensively over the years, as have national standards regarding the use of the space within that building. And it's the recommendation came from our FSAC meeting that we're recommending that we proceed with the rigor required to renovate the building to make it so that we can accommodate the increased complement in that building, but as well address many deficiencies in the building. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll let Director Norburn take it from there. I will also mention, as part of our meeting, that Director Bolton reported about the tax due date had passed when we had our meeting. 94.6% of all taxes had been collected, and there was still a little bit outstanding. I'm not sure if that number is any different since July the 10th, but is it better? Thank you. Perfect. So other than that, there is a recommendation for only information that FSAC recommends to council that they select option 1 for an expansion of the existing Quesnel detachment building as the preferred option. There were 3 options, which Director Norburn will go into. Taking into consideration deficiencies, we're not going to pass that as a motion as part of this report, but we did make that during our meeting. Other than that, if there's any questions, I'm finished.
Thank you, Councillor Vic, and this matter will be coming up later in the agenda. We do have a very lengthy and weighty report to consider, so as you say, that recommendation can be dealt with by council later after we've had some discussion and on that report. Anyone else on that FSAC meeting before I move over to the next item of business, which is the June 20 and July 5 CRD board meetings? Councillor Rudenberg to report.
Thank you. So you have before you the highlights of both the meetings. Coming out of the June board highlights, it just circled the RCMP discussion we had around dangerous dog concerns. They had a lengthy discussion around what that would look like. After all of that, the board at this time has committed, will not be committing to an animal control service and has planned to reconnect with the RCMP officials at a later time. I'll move on to the second board highlight, which was the July 18th. And I think of particular interest was the MOTI update on the Cariboo road recovery projects. They joined and discussed the various projects that are in play throughout the Cariboo. Those that would be of interest directly for Quesnel are the Quesnel-Hickson Road, the Highway 97 at Cottonwood Hill, the Blackwater Road at Knickerbocker, Durrell Road, Kersley-Dale Landing Road, Quesnel Hydraulic Road, and Baston Road at Baston Hill. These projects are all currently being looked at in various stages. They've got a program in place that's supposed to design and build transportation infrastructure that will be resilient and dependable for communities and road users for the long term. So they're not looking for quick fixes on these projects, and they're working through them. You can access more information information about these projects and the areas that it's focused on at Cariboo Road Recovery Project's webpage. You just throw that into Google and it will pop up for you. Second point of interest is the Canada Community Building Fund Agreement. The CRD has signed off on theirs. This is formerly the gas tax. We'll be talking about this further on in our own agenda. Other than that, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rudenberg. Anyone have any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Vic.
Thank you. Councillor Rudenberg, with the discussion about dangerous dog concerns, the City of Quesnel funds the SPCA, and it's accepted that some of the dogs that end up in that facility are not from city limits. They're from our friends in the regional district. Did any part of the conversation around dangerous dogs, did any of that bleed into perhaps assisting the City of Quesnel with that cost?
No. It was specifically around RCMP and how they might be able to participate in a service. There was no talk around SPCAs, which I know has been a continuous line of discussion, and I think it gets brought up by staff on an ongoing basis when they talk about renewal of services. But then we'll just keep asking.
I just want to keep that candle burning.
Yeah, can't hurt.
Okay, anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, sorry. Yep. Go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
Yeah, and thank you, Chair. And just for clarity, I guess, Councillor Rudenberg, in that discussion, and to Councillor Vic's question as well, it's still the case that the SPCA does not go into the CRD to deal with issues, correct?
That I could not tell you, Councillor Elliott. That's a good question, but I don't know what the answer to that is.
Okay. I'm pretty sure that's the case. At least it was back in the day. So to Councillor Vic's point, I think you're exactly right, Councillor, that still when those dogs may come in, however they do, there is a challenge financially for sure. But the other challenge is that unless there's an update, that we just don't go past our city limits. So maybe we should get some clarity on that down the road. Thank you for the report, though.
I can clarify. The SPCA does not pick up outside of city limits, and they only might go outside of city limits if there's an animal cruelty investigation. That would be the only reason. But obviously, people do drop off dogs from the CRD.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
But certainly it bears more discussion.
Agreed, 100%.
As it has for a long, long time. Anyone else on this particular item on the agenda before we move to city staff reports? Okay, I'll now move to admin report 93/24, Decrim Coordinator and Clean Team Program Director Turner to report.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Council, pleased to state that this is an updated report from what was on your agenda because we got late breaking news from the Northern Health that they were wanting to extend the contract for even longer than we had first thought they were going to be extending it. We were thinking it was going to be just an additional fiscal year, but they have announced that they are looking for that program to go until January 2026, which is why you've seen some updated numbers in Kelsi's report. So this report is to confirm that Council wants to continue with supporting the decriminalization coordinator position and the Clean Team program. The commitment of the funding of the Clean Team portion comes from the City of Quesnel, and that's what we'll be talking about later. The Clean Team provides a resource also to provide proactive as well as to respond to calls for cleanup of drug paraphernalia. The outreach funded through this program, the portion of it that's really funded by Northern Health, has also been successful in linking over 400 individuals in our community to services, as Kelsi reported, and with that team, and I'm very, very happy that Northern Health is continuing to want to see the benefit of this program and wanting to continue supporting it. So you'll see the numbers have updated in this report as well to update it to be it seems my attachment has something odd attached to it. I see North Cariboo. Is your report good on your end? There's just an odd attached. I don't have the full report on my end.
Carrie, did you have something you wanted to add here, or where am I going?
No. So anyway, but the recommendation will be the same on the first page there. The council approves continued partnership with Northern Health to support the decriminalization coordinator and the clean team until January 31st, 2026. That is the contract that Northern Health would like us to go through, and that council provides dedicating $87,600 for the operation of the clean team until January 31st, 2026.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Seconded, Councillor Rudenberg. Do we have a number to put in place of the 58,000? Or is that?
So
the recommendation stipulates 58,000, but I'm understanding that has changed because of the
correct. It's 87,000. It's in the a late agenda item, the updated agenda.
Right
yeah,
here.
report.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay.
Comment, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Councillor. You moved it, didn't you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just a comment before we actually take the vote. Yeah, I support this 100%, but I think I would like to have a conversation too about the potential of having some kind of detox center or something in this area that's going to make it easier for our citizens to partake in. So that maybe that's something we can look into down the road. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. And who was my seconder? Councillor Rudenberg, are we ready for the vote on this? I'm sorry, I didn't notice that I had a. Go ahead, Councillor. You want to speak? Go ahead.
Just one question for Director Turner, and I know I ask this every time, and I'm voting in favor of this because, frankly, it's critical. But understanding that this is policy from the provincial government that we are reacting to and dealing with locally, is there any hope of any provincial support in funding the clean team or, frankly, to Northern Health for funding their position to run the clean team?
Well, clearly these dollars are coming from the province, right? These province that are going to Northern Health are coming from the province to fund a special initiative for the decriminalization. These are definitely provincial dollars that are supporting Kelsi's position, for sure. To provide, they identified there was a great need to provide outreach supports to individuals using drugs, and that's what the majority of this money, or the majority of the money that Northern Health has, is for. We are, just to be very clear, we're the only municipality that's running this program. All of these same positions are run out of health authorities in other communities, and through conversations with all of the facilitators that are monitoring these other groups, our program is running very successfully in terms of its interactions with individuals, in terms of its assistance to the downtown, into some of the greater goods that are coming out of this that are listed in my report.
Okay, thank you. Are we ready for a vote on this one? We have a mover, we have a seconder, so I will now call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Well done, staff. So next we move to item K2, and this is Admin Report 92/24 RCMP Detachment Expansion. Director Norburn on this one, please.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to seek council approval for a preferred option to expand and upgrade the Quesnel RCMP detachment building, and to direct staff to enter into discussions with the provincial RCMP to secure pro rata funding commitment for the project. Number 10, Architectural Group was hired by the city last year to undertake a facility condition assessment and feasibility study for the Quesnel RCMP detachment and prepare conceptual designs and cost estimates for both a renovation of the existing building as well as potential construction of a new detachment building. The facility condition assessment concluded that the 33-year-old building is structurally sound and in reasonably good condition, but that it no longer meets the space requirements and operational needs of the detachment. To address the shortage of space and overcrowding identified in the report, the consultants recommended two options to expand the building. The first option is to expand the second floor with an addition above the existing cell block and construct a new administration corridor on the first floor for a total expansion area of 553 square meters. And that project has an estimated cost of $23,660,477. Very precise. Option 2A is the expansion that's included in option 1 plus construction of a second level addition onto the south side of the building over the parking lot for a total expansion area of just over 1,400 square meters for an estimated cost of a little over $37 million. They've also provided what we call option 2B, which is based on the same square footage, roughly a 3,000 square meter building, new construction, to compare the cost of new construction with an expansion and renovation of the existing building. The estimated cost for that option was $54,302,000. New construction is considerably more expensive and would require identifying a suitable site. Property acquisition may be required, and if the existing building were vacated by the Quesnel detachment, it would be necessary to determine a suitable use for the existing building. In order to advance the process, Council will need to identify a preferred option and direct staff to work with the RCMP to secure pro rata funding for the project. The RCMP renovation project was discussed by the FSAC committee at their meeting on July 10th, which Councillor Vic has already spoken about. Obtaining the necessary approvals and securing the required funding for the project to proceed is expected to take a number of months and potentially could take more than a year. It's anticipated that additional reports and information will be provided by staff at various stages as the project proceeds, and there'll be a need for additional design development, updated cost estimates, consideration of funding options, discussions of communications plans related to potential referendum and other matters. So this is really just the first step in a long process, I think, is what we're trying to get across. There's considerably more detail in the report, and then of course there's the attachment, which has even more detail on top of that. I'm not going to go through all that. The recommendation is that Council identify option 1, an estimated 553 square meter expansion and upgrade of the existing Quesnel RCMP detachment building as presented in the feasibility and conceptual design report prepared by Number 10 Architectural Group as the preferred option to address the space requirements and operational needs of the Quesnel RCMP detachment, taking into consideration deficiencies identified by the RCMP, and direct staff to work with the RCMP to secure a commitment for pro rata funding for the project. The staff sergeant is here as well this evening and can answer questions, and I'm available to answer questions as well.
Okay, so before we get into the discussion, I'd like to get that motion on the floor. And this is a motion, option 1 was recommended by FSAC. So they have looked at it. That is their recommendation. And the recommendation contained on page 51 of 193 of your agenda is exactly that. So if I could get a mover on that, Councillor Vic and Councillor Rudenberg moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Or, well, I guess we're going to go into discussion and we'll vote after we've had our discussion. So the floor is open.
Mr. Mayor?
Okay. So I don't see anything. I mean, this is, oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Elliott.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe I should speak up, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. Yeah, I believe, well, I'm not sure, but I think most, if not all of us, have done a tour of the building, and it's hard to explain, how deficient this building is. As far as council, and I'll speak for myself, but when we're making recommendations for what we think is safety policy for our city, and bringing up the contingent of the RCMP, we feel good about it, and we feel good about protecting our citizens and things like that. But there are things that go along with that, and that's getting more staff members into that building, which is small, and it's very, very overcrowded right now. And if we get more resources in town that we could, desperately need in certain circumstances, it is just, it's not feasible. This has to be done. There has to be some work done. It's just how we're going to do it. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Elliott. And I will say that I was on staff when that building was built, and I vividly remember the architects telling council that you've got a very awkward piece of property there in the fact that it's a triangle. So the interior and really the tour that we all took of the detachment building really told the story about how crowded and really how awkward that building is, given the fact that it's on a triangular footprint. But I agree with the FSAC. I mean, going for a new building is just not on financially for the city, especially given the fact that we've got so many other large projects sitting on the back burner. So, so I'd like to go ahead, Councillor Vic.
Yeah, I'll just echo what Councillor Elliott said and yourself, Mr. Mayor. The building is challenging, and it was a challenging build 33 years ago. It wasn't an efficient design by nature of the fact that it's a triangle. So there unfortunately, in a building of that type, at its time, it worked for the time it was built, but times have changed. And when it comes to the personnel safety and the overall efficiency of that building, it's just not practical any longer. And I know that as we move into the future, we will probably get more resources to help us in our community, and we're just not equipped. So obviously, we identified three options. This is the most affordable option, but we've also left a little wiggle room. There was a report the RCMP received on the state of that building, and we are allowing some wiggle room to incorporate some of those ideas into this renovation expansion. So I certainly hope council is on board, and we can begin this long process. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Vic. Now I'm going to go to Councillor Rudenberg.
Thank you. So having taken part in the tour there a couple weeks ago, it is actually quite horrendous how that building has transformed into what it is today. And when I say that is, I think, Councillor Elliott alluded to it. We always, praise ourselves for the fact that we say, yes, we'll pay for more RCMP officers. We never take into effect that, do they actually have space to put these guys? And so when you've got a space where 4 guys are sitting in there, they're trying to do their reports, if they move their chair to get up, they're actually banging into the next guy. That's how tight some of these spaces are. And some of the other pieces of that building, the workspaces for staff is horrendous, and where they have to host their meetings versus where they should be hosting them, et cetera, et cetera. So I have no issues moving forward with trying to create a building that it will take care of, our needs that we have for our RCMP, and that they can actually work in a building that doesn't crowd them out, basically. It's a long time coming, and I think that we need to, this isn't going to happen overnight. We know that, because now we have to get into the whole process of a referendum or a reverse referendum to get the funding. We have to make sure the province is on board, because they have to pay some into this, or whomever, the other funding partners. So I think the faster we get this going, the better off we will be as a community. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rudenberg. Well said. So anyone else before we take the vote?
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, Councillor Goulet.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I echo the comments as well. Taking a tour of the building, my eyes were open on the space that's in there and how it's all congested into the design of the building, and looking at it. And when I was looking at the options, I looked at option 2 and I thought, well, that's a great way. We've expanded, we almost doubled, tripled if you look at the number of 1,000 meters, maybe might be better, but also looking at costs in a time where we have to be fluid in what those construction costs are, right? So, I'm okay with proceeding with option 1, but maybe, and I see it says in addition to option 1, so maybe there's some opportunity to move forward at some other point, but I think option 1 is a start for us in trying to secure that funding and move this along so we can do that as quick as we can. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Elliott, yes, I saw you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And just to Councillor Rudenberg's point, and ditto to everything that's being said here, it is a partnership as far as funding is concerned, and I would look to maybe Director Bolton to, just for the clarity of the public on what our split could potentially be or should be down the road between us and the RCMP.
Sure. As pointed out in the report, the split is based on the municipal officers in the building, and municipal staff versus provincial RCMP officers and provincial staff. So right now, we pay 58%, and the RCMP pays 42%.
Okay.
Thank you. I think that's helpful.
Thank you for that. Anyone else before I call the question on this milestone vote here tonight? So all in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And well done, staff. I know we're going to be talking about this one and acting on this one down the road, and I look forward to that. The next report, or the next item on the agenda, is Admin Report 88/24, Bylaw number 1967, City of Quesnel, Permissive Tax Exemption Amendment Bylaw. First 3 readings. Director Bolton to report.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to seek approval for the first 3 readings of the City of Quesnel 2024-2027 Permissive Tax Exemption Amendment Bylaw No. 1967 of 2024. So as you know, last year we went through all the tax exemptions for the nonprofits and the bylaw was passed. But since that time, we found out that when the Legion built their new dock, it created a new forester lease folio that was created that also requires an exemption. So if you look at Schedule A of the bylaw, you can see I've added that one property to give an exemption to that dock. So the recommendation is that council proceed with the first 3 readings of the City of Quesnel 2024 to 2027 Permissive Tax Exemption Amendment Bylaw No. 1967 of 2024.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, moved by, actually, I've got Councillor McKelvey, so Councillor Elliott, you're seconding it. Any discussion? I will say that if anything is deserving of a tax exemption, it is this. Because this dock, a person can go from a wheelchair directly into a kayak or a canoe on their own. So it's pretty significant. So having said that, do we have any? Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
Yeah, ditto, Mr. Mayor. Agreed 100%. But back to Director Bolton again. This seems like an anomaly, the way that this worked out as far as this tax exemption went. It's something that was kind of, put through pretty quick, and it seems like it doesn't happen a lot. Is that correct?
The folio, we were notified of it too late to put through the exemption last year, but we worked with CSM to give them an exemption. Sorry, I'm losing my voice, for 2024. And so this will give them the exemption going forward.
Thank you.
Okay, so can we have a vote on this? Are we ready? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is Admin Report 89/24, UBCM Community Resilience Investment Fire Smart Grant Application. Manager Robinson to report, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Paull and Council. So the purpose of this report is to seek a resolution from Council on the upcoming UBCM Community Resilience, or CRI, program grant application that will be submitted in September of 2024. So a summary, the Forestry Initiatives Program is seeking $200,000 in CRI funding in 2025 to continue our Fire Smart education and outreach, carry out home assessments and the rebate program, replace our Community Wildfire Protection Plan with a Community Wildfire Resilience Plan, enable Fire Smart Neighborhood Recognition Program, and assist vulnerable property owners, that would be seniors, low-income, mobility-challenged people, with Fire Smart activities on their private land. And I have two notes that relate to this. The first is the Quesnel and surrounding area Community Wildfire Protection Plan, or what we refer to as the CWPP since 2019, will remain in effect until the new Community Wildfire Resilience Plan, CWRP, is instituted. Yes, we can blame the province for the name change. And the second note I have is the program for vulnerable property owners will be very similar to the program we ran for United Way and the CRI Economic Recovery Funded Program. This was part of our wildfire recovery initiatives. You'll remember that we served many homeowners with these programs, and so this would be a seamless continuation of that program if we're successful with the funding. So may I move on to the recommendation?
You certainly can, please.
That Quesnel City Council supports the City of Quesnel's grant application to the Union of BC Municipalities for the 2025 Community Resiliency Investment Program to carry out Fire Smart education and outreach, home assessment and rebate program, developing a Community Wildfire Resilience Plan, and instituting a program to assist vulnerable private landowners with Fire Smart activities as part of our Quesnel and surrounding area Community Wildfire Protection Plan's private land strategy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. So I'd like to get that in the form of a motion. Councillor Rudenberg, Councillor Goulet are moving and seconding. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, opposed, carried. Thank you, well done. Okay, the next report is Admin Report 90/24, 2024 to 2034 Community Works Fund CWF Agreement with Director Bolton to report.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to review the updated Community Works Fund Agreement from 2024 to 2034 with Council for Council approval. So the Canada Community Building Fund has been renewed for 10 years and will result in over $3.5 billion in federal funding to BC for local infrastructure investments. This was a program that we used to refer to as the gas tax. So the Community Works Fund is a long-standing program of the CCBF, which provides each local government in BC with an annual base amount and per capita allocation. The City of Quesnel receives approximately $500,000 each year. The city has been receiving funds from this program since 2005 and reviews the funds available and potential projects during the capital budget process each year. So the recommendation is that Council approve the 2024 to 2034 Community Works Agreement with the Union of BC Municipalities and authorize the Mayor and Corporate Officer to sign the agreement.
Okay, thank you for that. Can we get that in the form of a motion, and then we'll have discussion? Councillor Vic, you are moving. Councillor Rudenberg is seconding it, so we've got it on the floor. Is there any discussion before I call the question? This is pretty straightforward. This has been going on for a long, long time, and we hope that it continues to go on for a long, long time. So seeing no questions or comments, I will then call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Council. Next report is Admin Report 91/24, Disc Golf License of Occupation. Director Norburn, you're on.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to obtain council approval to enter into an agreement with the Quesnel Disc Golf Club for the use of the Fuel Management Trails property for the purpose of developing a disc golf course. So the Quesnel Disc Golf Club is a nonprofit organization, and they requested that they be permitted to develop a disc golf course on city property adjacent to the airport that currently includes the Fuel Management Trail network. At its regular meeting on June 25th, council reviewed the proposal and passed passed a resolution supporting the development of a disc golf course on the property and directing staff to prepare a license of occupation for review and approval by council at a future meeting. Staff have developed a proposed 5-year agreement for council's consideration. The terms of the proposed agreement are as presented at the June 25th meeting, and the recommendation is that council enter into the attached 5-year license of occupation with the Quesnel Disc Golf Club for non-exclusive use of the Fuel Management Trails property for the purpose of developing a disc golf course, and that the mayor and corporate administrator be authorized to execute such documentation as required to complete the agreement.
Okay, thank you for that, Director Norburn. Now, let's have a motion on the floor. Councillor Vic, Councillor McKelvey, moving, seconding. Any discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Vic.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just recently toured a disc golf course in Hope, BC, owned by the City of Hope, multi-use area, much like what we're proposing here. It seemed to function most excellent and well-used course in a wooded area where trees were left intact. And I have every confidence that our local guys here can do the same. We have two of the proponents in the audience tonight. Thanks for coming, fellas. And I definitely think this is going to be a great asset for the community. I've seen it how it works in other communities, and I'm pretty sure we can do the same or better. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Vic. Anyone else before I call the question on this one? Okay, are we all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you for that. Look forward to a new enjoyable sport in our community. The next one is Admin Report 8724, Mayoral Administrative Continuity. First time with my new mouth. Director Bolton to report.
Thank you. So this report comes out of just a discussion with the mayor to make sure that we had a very clear process of who was acting mayor, if the mayor was away, if an acting mayor was away, and then if the mayor and the acting mayor were away. So it's just to make sure that we're always covered. So if one of the other acting mayors is not available, the other acting mayor will assume responsibility. On the rare occasion, which has never happened, but just in case, if all three are unavailable, with the interim appointment of an acting mayor would be made by the mayor to ensure administrative continuity. So it would be without a council resolution. Council could reaffirm it at the next council meeting, but this is just in an emergency. There's no one, both the acting mayors are away, the mayor's away, and we need someone else just in case there's a reason that we need a mayor. So the recommendation is in the event that the mayor and current acting mayor are unable to perform their duties, the second acting mayor will assume responsibility. In the event that the mayor and both appointed acting mayors are unable to perform their duties, council directs the mayor to appoint an interim acting mayor and ensure that council and staff are notified of the designation and contact information for that person.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott, and Councillor Vic, seconding. Any discussion? Pretty straightforward. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. So on council information package, nothing has been brought forward. And we do have item M, a petition from the North Fraser Drive, I guess it's North Fraser Drive residents. Is there paper to go with this? No? Okay, so a crosswalk and crossing lights at the bus stop on North Fraser Drive due to dangerous traffic hazards when crossing the bus stop. And this was received on July 8, submitted by Gary Swigman and 45 residents from the applicable area, North Fraser Drive. A copy of the petition was forwarded to council on July 25. Staff recommendation is that council refer the North Fraser Drive crosswalk and cross-light residents' request to the 2025 capital process for review and prioritization. So if I could get that as a resolution, we'll get that. Councillor Vic and Councillor McKelvey, all in favor, opposed, carried. Next one is July 22nd. We have a letter from the Cariboo Métis Association, and I think it's here somewhere as a late addition, and that is a request for a resolution of support to the Northern Development Initiative Trust Cultural Infrastructure Program.
Mr. Mayor, I'm in a conflict of interest on this one because I'm the president of the organization, so I'll step out while you guys have a discussion. Thank you.
All right, so we'll give Councillor Goulet a little time to exit. And I'm just looking for some background on this. I don't have the letter, like specifically, can you?
We at the North Cariboo Métis Association would like to request a letter of support from the City Council. The letter of support will help us receive funding from the Northern Development Initiative Trust Cultural Infrastructure Program. We're applying for this funding to hire an economic development officer and to fund some programs. Your support would be greatly appreciated, and we thank you in advance.
Okay, thank you for that, and thank you, Councillor McKelvey, for rescuing me there. So you know the gist of the request. Are we ready for a motion to approve
Question,
that?
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Elliott. Did you
Mr.
have
Mayor.
a comment? Go ahead.
Yeah, this seems very straightforward, but I don't think that it would put, because they're looking for infrastructure, I don't think that this puts any of our asks to NDIT in jeopardy.
I think that's a point well taken.
Okay. Can I get any clarity on that? I don't see it, but.
Well, it's not. I don't see that there's any.
I don't think that we've ever actually applied to the cultural infrastructure program, so I don't think this one would be competing with any of our applications.
Thank you for the clarity.
Okay, Councillor Rudenberg.
No, I was just looking it up, and it supports creation of or the improvement of arts, heritage, culture, and creative innovation spaces. So it's nothing that we've applied for lately. So, yeah.
Thank you again.
Okay, thank you. So we do have a mover and a seconder. Are we? No, we don't. Okay, so if I can get a mover and a seconder on approving this request for a letter of support. Councillor Rudenberg, Councillor Vick. Okay. Any discussion before I call the question? Okay, question is called. All in favor? Carried unanimously. So if you could call Councillor Goulet back into the room. Okay, now we can move to bylaws, and it appears that the only bylaw that we have to consider right now is bylaw number 1966, because we've already dealt with bylaw number 1967. Am I right with that? So therefore, I'm looking for a motion for final adoption of City of Quesnel appointment of officers and delegation of authority amendment bylaw number 1966 of 2024 for final adoption.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott and Councillor Vick. Councillor, take your choice, Councillor Vick or Councillor Rudenberg. They both had put their hands up instantaneously. So do we have any discussion on that? Pretty straightforward. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We have no new business. And I'm going to call for, there's no changes to upcoming meeting schedule, no changes to committee appointments, announcements, and events. Anyone? Councillor Goulet.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And you will have note that we were to have the 50th and first annual powwow at LHTAKO this weekend, but due to the situation with the fires, road closures, and all of the things that were happening, it has been now postponed to August the 30th that weekend, so August the 30th to September 2nd, and just wanted to put that out there that it will still be happening. It's just been postponed, and the decision wasn't taken lightly, but we just felt, celebrating and dancing during a time when we're burning up and there's quite a few road closures, we just thought it would be best interest to postpone that event. So just wanted to make that announcement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Goulet. Anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a big thank you to all the volunteers for the 48th annual Billy Barker Days celebration. The festival went off without a hitch, lots of great bands and activities. So thank you to all the volunteers and the corporate sponsors that actually make this the biggest free festival in British Columbia.
Okay, thank you for that. Nothing else before I move to gallery questions. Anyone from the gallery have a question pertaining to anything that was discussed at tonight's council meeting? Okay, seeing none, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn, please. And then we're going to move into a special closed meeting immediately after this meeting adjourns. So Councillor Vic moving, second, Councillor Rudenberg seconding. All in favor, opposed, carried. Thank you, everyone.